Just a quick note before you watch this conversation with my husband and I, to get a full understanding and to get the context, you want to make sure that you watch part 1 of this video where I share things first and then come back and watch this conversation. Do you remember? I don't know if I ever had this conversation with you. Like being gentle, like how you're touching me.
What about it?
Do you remember what exactly I said to you?
You want me to be gentle?
Mm-hmm. Like how you touch me?
Yeah.
How did you receive that?
I didn't like it.
Why?
Because it means that...
You didn't tell me this. I didn't know you didn't like it.
I mean, you're telling me to be gentle and makes me feel like, oh, I'm not doing I'm doing something wrong.
If a wife wants her husband to show her love in a particular way, how does I know you don't speak for all men, but how do you think a man generally would receive that? Or like if I said to you, I like when you show me love in this way over this particular way.
So how you said it before is you simply just say, be gentle, be gentle. It almost makes me feel like you're talking to a kid. Like the kid is doing something that he shouldn't do. Or you're like, put that down. Or
Interesting.
don't move that. Or don't go that way.
Like I'm trying to correct your actions.
Yeah.
So you're doing something, but I'm trying to correct the actions.
Yeah.
How would I have
feel.
said that to you? For it to not come off that way.
I think if you were to say it as what you prefer instead of what I need to do. So instead of telling me this is what you should do, you should say, this is how I like it. So if you're telling me, oh, be gentle, it's like you're telling me to do something.
By the way, it's not that he's rough, it's just that you're more playful. Pokey.
Yeah.
I like the rubbing.
Yeah, I'm not used to that stuff. So I don't like that. I'm just not used to that. I've never gotten that. I've never had learned that. So it makes me cringe a little bit because it's like it's weird to me. It's awkward to me. So if you want me to be gentle, I'm trying to see if it really works, because I could say it, but then it's just me just saying it because it seems to be the right thing to say. So if you were to, instead of telling me be gentle, if you say, babe, I don't want to feel...
Okay, sorry, let me specify it a little bit more. So if it's, I want you to show me love by having more conversations, like taking me over to the couch and sitting down. Obviously, we're now at that place, right? But I prefer for you to show me love like that. Like you have this interest in me and you want to talk to me. You want to find out what's going on in my mind, my thoughts and my feelings and all of that, but it doesn't come natural for you. How do I, as a wife, communicate to you, this is how I like for you to show me love? This is what makes me feel loved.
So you say, babe, when you ask me questions, I feel like you are really interested in who I am, and it makes me feel loved. Yeah, I think.
So telling you what the specific action does for me, rather than telling you this is what you need to do.
I guess so. Or if you have any of those actions that's happened in the past. So it's not like you're not really talking about me.
I'm not making it about you. I'm making it more about what I would like.
Yeah, or your past.
what do you think would make a husband not want to, like, if his wife is continuously, oh, I like when you take me out, I want you to do this because these are the things that makes me feel loved, but if he's not acting on that, what do you think might be some things going on in his mind, or what were some things going on in your mind when?
Well, here's the other thing. It's not, if you think that you could just tell him once and expect him to change his ways and be completely different than who he is, because obviously it's not coming naturally to him. That means he has never developed that whatever that is. And so if you're expecting him to do that just because you told him once,
What if you told
or
him
that
5
become
times?
a natural thing, it wouldn't make sense. If you told him 5 times and if he's still not doing it, then I think there's 2 parts. First, you need to be settled and at peace that even if he may never do it, that your satisfaction and love is not coming from that action. I think that's one way of looking at it. It could be quite discouraging or not as... It could be disappointing, but at the same time, if we are Christians, I think the most satisfying and eternal and all the best love we can receive is whatever comes from the Lord. So I have to double check that am I if I don't get this, that is the end of my world. Is it something that would cause so much pain and deter me from loving the other person? So that's something I think everyone needs to check in themselves. It does, like, am I so caught up in this feeling that we desire that becomes the idol of our desires?
Do you think it's really possible? Like, there's a question I didn't even think about asking, like, even for the video, but if you don't love me in a particular kind of way, if you, let's say, no longer want to have like these kinds of conversations sitting on the couch, that I could genuinely still have a fulfilling life, or we could have a fulfilling marriage if I just accept that you can't love me that way? I feel like intellectually I know that all sufficiency in Christ, but at the same time I feel like if we can't talk in that way anymore. Okay,
so here's what's amazing about how God has made humans, because you could be missing your legs and always looking at people wishing that you desire to walk or run just like them. And that you would feel miserable because you don't have what they have.
That's good.
But if you continue to dwell in that mindset, you can never be happy with your life and what you have. And so instead of looking at what you don't have, if you look at what you have, it makes a world of difference. Obviously, at that point, it's not something you can change, right? You can't just grow legs. So you have to be okay with it. And choosing to be okay with it, I think, will go a long way. Instead of thinking that you can never have it and you're always wishing for it. So that's one way of looking at it. Now, because this is another human being, you believe you can change the person to give you what you want. Or you would probably demand that it is something that they should do. And I think it could be, to a degree, it is possible. Like, if it's also your perception of how you see the other person. Because if the other person truly loves you, maybe it's not shown in the right way, or it's not obvious.
The preferred way.
And still, you believe that this person loves you, and if this person does love you, as a man, I would do even the things that I don't want to do to make you happy. That's just part of our lives. Everything that we do, we don't do it because we want to. There are things in my life that I would still do because there is a greater purpose and reason and worth for me to go through the things I don't want to do and choose to do the things it might be hard. So I believe every man has that desire to make their wives happy and love their wives. And so I believe he would try. If he is genuine about his care for her, he would try his best. Now, that may not look like or meet up to the standard and expectation that she may want or need. However, he is trying. And if he is trying, isn't that good enough?
Mm.
Can you help him try to be better? Can you give him more opportunities and maybe make that trying better? Yes, but it should be good enough that he is trying. So more practically, if you were to say, oh, this person is not really doing or is not really getting it.
Right.
I think there are ways to tell the person without telling them. Creating a scenario where you can encourage them without words. So let's just say, what was the scenario we were talking about before?
Talking, like if I want you to talk more, like.
Okay, so if I want to talk to you more and spend time with you, asking questions, and it doesn't come naturally to me. Create a space for it. Let's say, for instance, the husband is truly busy with doing things and he had certain tasks that he had to get done today. What if you were to do one of those tasks for him so that he has the space and the time? Free up his time.
You're saying create the opportunity for him to make it easier to do something that wouldn't not naturally come easier for him that serves you.
Exactly. I don't like at a workplace, if you have a new employee that you need to train, you expected that the person would get it by just telling them, but they don't get it. They still keep making mistakes, So, is it better to just keep telling them to do it and try to? It's like if you give them consequences of you failing at it, or if you keep nagging at them, it's not gonna help the person to do it well. But what if you try to identify what the problem is? Why isn't the person getting it? And you kind of do a more hands-on approach of guiding them through with examples and you making the effort to help the person to get it. They will be forever more grateful that they were able to do a task they weren't able to do before, they didn't know how, and now they are able to because of your help.
I see.
And it took you more time and energy, but that work makes a world of difference.
That's true.
And so with your husband, instead of just saying, this is how I want, what if you were to teach them how and as long as they are desiring to do that, you give them space if they don't have the space. If like making up time, if they say, oh, I'm too busy, they don't know what to ask. Okay, you give them questions that would help them to ask you the right questions. So depending on what their struggle is, you could provide an easier solution until they get off the training wheel and then they could ride themselves.
That's good. Yesterday, when we were at the ultrasound and you were like touching me and stuff, what was going through your mind? What made you react to me that way?
Well, because she said you have fibroids, and I know what that could mean for a woman. So what I mean is, I don't know the extent of what that could mean, but from what I've learned from you, it could be devastating to a woman because you might have to go through a procedure that prevents you from having a baby. And that is, I know what kind of shock that could bring. And problems, right? At least I've learned.
Mm.
So when the lady said that, I was concerned that you would, even though we're not for sure what could happen, it can. Like the future is not certain, but it can, and the possibility. And I know, I was thinking like my wife may be thinking about all the negative possibilities that could happen, the worst things.
Mm.
And so I was worried that you would be very sad.
Mm.
And so that's why I wanted to reassure you that things are going to be okay.
So let me tell you the backstory, which was when this friend texted me this morning. I was like, this is how God works. So normally when I'm sick, right, you're more militant.
Yeah.
Because how you were yesterday, that's not how you normally are. And I understand the circumstances is a little bit more intense, but it's not normally how you would respond.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, we had issues like this before. I'm like, oh, when I'm sick, I need you to be more gentle.
More sympathizing.
More sympathizing rather than let's just fix it and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
right? So obviously, I was on you more with that. I didn't mention it a lot, but I think we talked about it several times. And I realized, okay, one, I need to accept that this is how you show love. Because I wasn't paying attention to you're showing me love by wanting to help me to overcome the illness. I was just focused more on, I want you to be more sympathizing.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go through this internal process and walking with it in the Lord, and learning to accept, and not just accept, but actually appreciate that this is how you show love, and I need to be grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
And not think that just because you're not as sympathizing and whatever that it means that you don't care. So I was like, I need to appreciate that, and I had to learn to genuinely love that and appreciate that. And then I was also praying. I was like, Lord, and I think I prayed about it a few times, but I wasn't like always praying about it, but that you would be a little bit more sympathetic, more soft, right? And so like when I'm sick and stuff, but I never mentioned it again. So yesterday, after I went to the gynecologist and I was like, oh, we're going to do an ultrasound, I think in my mind, I was like, okay, how are we going to walk through this together? And I know my husband more than likely is going to find out, okay, what do we do to get rid of these things and all of that? And so my mindset was already, you would respond in a different way than I'm expecting, and that is okay. Like if you go there and you're asking the doctors more questions and do you want to find all the natural remedies and all of that stuff, and you're not as like
it still means
soft,
he cares.
it still means that you care.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So I went into the appointment thinking that way. It's like, he's still going to be here. This is just his way of showing that he cares. So when you were in there and then you were like touching me, I was like, this is so strange. It was like, so much stuff was going on in my mind yesterday. I was like, I'm going to tell you eventually, but this morning was a perfect time. So it was such a funny moment for me. Like the moment I let that go and surrendered that, like he may not show care and love in this particular way, and that is still okay. That's actually when it happened. And you're still trying to find out all the information and stuff. But that was such a profound lesson to me, because if you had not responded that way, I would have been okay. And you responded that way and I was still okay. But that was a huge...
It's like dessert. Unexpected dessert. Like you had a meal, you're like, oh, this was so good.
Yes.
It's fine to... like, but then it's like, oh, babe, I have a dessert for you.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
So you're...
It's not really necessary, but it's extra.
Yeah, so either way, if you didn't, I would have been completely satisfied and totally fine and not felt like anything was missing.
Yeah.
But I think that only happened because one, I had to learn to appreciate this is how you show love, and it's not, nothing is wrong with that. And I had to give up this sort of idolized, especially what they show you on TV, you know, how couples are when the lady is sick or whatever, and how he responds, and just the preferences and desire. Like, surrender that to God, not give up. It doesn't mean that you would never be able to show love in that way, but it's like, if you don't, I'm still good and we're still good. And then, appreciating how you show love, and then giving that to God in prayer. It's like, Lord, could you put it on his heart to do that? And I don't have to mention that anymore. So I didn't have to ask you. We didn't talk about it anymore, and we just did it.
No. I mean, yesterday I wasn't even thinking about all those things.
I know you weren't thinking about that.
It just, that's how I felt like I needed to do what I needed to do. And maybe it's a less, like, different experiences and learning from those things too. But
because you
I
also
do think about it more so now, because no one really told me that that's how I should be.
Right.
So over the years of our marriage, you've told me, and so I believe I'm more sensitive to that aspect, even for other sicknesses too. It's like, you know, I shouldn't probably like just try to fix that or tell her this. And, oh, did you ask her? Did you drink water? Did you take the tablets or whatever?
And this happened when I was at the conference too. Like when I was telling you about the day, I was like, oh, I went through all this stuff. And then you were just more soft. You're like, oh, that's so rough. That's really hard. Like that wasn't
it's
like
more
a normal,
in tune with other people's emotions.
Yes. Rather than
and God has
to...
been teaching me that for sure. I know, I see a difference in my mind. That I would actually even think about that.